So I'm welcoming you all to the Climate Finance for Fast Action on Methane Reduction and Just Transition in the Waste Sector webinars. So I am Yogi. I am from CNN Indonesia as a senior correspondent, and I'm also head of Environment and Climate Desk. I want you to all enjoy this morning with our webinar. We will give you some great speakers. We have 4 speakers, of course, today, and we have also 2 panel response. And then I want you to write your name in the chat box, and then where you come from or organization, please tell me. And we will start in a few minutes with our speakers. And this webinars, we will share about the initial finding from the report that GAIA commissioned in the Climate Policy Initiative. The report will provide us insight on challenge, opportunities, and recommendation for climate finance for methane reduction and just transition in the waste sector. So in this webinar, we will learn about some things that we might need it in the future. We can get the best practice from Brazil and Indonesia presented by Polis Institute and YPBB Bandung. Both of them are member of GAIA, and the latest analysis from CPI about those cases. At the end of presentation, we will have 2 panel response from 2 government representatives from Indonesia and also from Philippines. And I will give you a clue or introduce you all about the speakers. We have 4 main speakers. The first will be Yobel Novian Putra as the Climate Policy Officer of GAIA. He will set the context of this report and share the state of play for climate finance and policy. And for the second, we will have Fictor Ferdinand, who is often called as Vicky. You can call him as Vicky, as the Managing Director of YPBB Bandung. He will share some best practice from Bandung that is covered in this report. And then also we have Victor Argentino, who is the Solid Waste Project Coordinator in Polis Institute. He will share the best practice from several cities in Brazil. So this is your opportunity to give question or to give insight, anything. And then we have Tiza Mafira, who is the director of CPI. She will present the initial findings from this report based on the 2 case studies. And also we have 2 response from the panel responder representative of government official from Indonesia and Philippines. We have Ibu Anina Novitasan. She is the coordinator of emission reduction from solid waste in the Solid Waste Handling Directorate, Ministry of Environment and Forestry in Indonesia. And then we have Maria Teresa, we can call her Gema. She is City Environment and Natural Resources Office of San Fernando City, Pampanga, Philippines. And also we have question and answer session. We have quick rules, and then you can feel free to discuss anything in our chat box, and you can write your question in the chat room. I'm sorry, in the Q&A box. You can raise head there, you can write your question there, and we will collect. And then I will read the question after the speaker presenting their presented. And then I will give you information that we are recording this webinar, and you can also following this webinar by LinkedIn. We also live there. Please, you can check there. And then, okay, now it's already 7:05. I think it's time for the speakers. Our first speaker is Yobel. The screen is yours. Please, Yobel.
Thank you, Yogi. And good morning, everyone. Thank you. I know it's quite early for some of the Asian countries like Indonesia, Vietnam. But I really thank for everyone for the time, because we are going to share some initial findings, as Yogi said, of a report that we've been working with CPI and 2 GAIA members, which is Polis and YPBB in 2 countries. So I'm going to share that the context of this. Next slide, please. Okay, so climate finance and policy conversations has evolved rapidly at the climate COPs in the last 4 years. And in the context of the waste sector, the Global Methane Pledge launch was instrumental in creating what we today call as the methane momentum, where more than 150 countries signed this pledge to drastically reduce methane emissions before 2030 and to keep the goal of Paris Agreement alive. This has a huge significance because the waste sector is the third largest source of anthropogenic methane. And last year at COP28, we see a growing momentum through the announcement of lowering organic waste methane partnership, or what people call as LOAM. For the first time at COP, we've seen a significant and specific financial commitment made for the waste sector. This is important because we have not seen the waste sector in the negotiation agenda. We've seen food loss and waste for sure in the food system, but not not the waste sector. So this is big. And the goal of this partnership is to unlock over 10 billion US dollar investment to do a rapid and deep cut of waste methane in 40 subnational jurisdictions before 2030. This means cities, municipalities at the local level when the action happens. And this year at COP29, the main negotiation agenda is to set a new climate finance goal. Next month, we are in COP, we are going to see a major declaration as well, specific on waste methane reduction by COP29 presidency of the Azerbaijan government. And as we're riding this growing momentum towards COP30, countries are also updating their national climate pledges under the Paris Agreement, or what we call NDCs 3.0. The NDCs are basically documents that national governments use to signal financiers about their country's climate finance need. I know in Indonesia and the Philippines, the conversation has started. I've heard there's been draft circulating. And then if countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Brazil, Vietnam, ask for food loss and waste prevention or composting, then that signals financiers to provide climate funds for those actions. So this is where we are right now. Next, please. And then in the waste sector, what we've seen, most of climate finance actually goes to the wrong places, creating further harms rather than helping us with the climate crisis. A recent report by CPI found that 99% of climate finance for methane reduction actually goes to waste to energy incineration, a technology that has been failing in many countries and created harm to local communities from its toxic emissions. I know for some of you, maybe this is a new information, but I want to emphasize that the European Union a few years ago gave out a clear signal to stop financing waste incinerator through the EU taxonomy. And last week, through the BBC, we found that UK waste incinerator are actually emitting the same amount of greenhouse gas for each unit of energy when compared to coal-fired power plants. And GAIA's study actually a few years back found a similar findings, but when we counted in that study, when we counted biogenic carbon, the US incinerators actually emit even more greenhouse gases compared to coal-fired power plants. More reasons to leave it as a climate solution. And as an example, in Asia, the Asian Development Bank provided $1 billion in the last 10 years to support what we call in the CSO's movement as a false solution for climate. And many countries also giving the wrong signals. As GAIA found in 2021, 99 NDCs are asking for climate finance support for incinerators and RDF. Next. And at the local level, because GAIA is a global network, our members at the local level in cities and municipalities have been faced by a harsh reality where they're implementing zero waste solutions and trying to put a segregation at source, composting, but it often, the waste management is not seen or treated as truly as an essential public service. We'll see a finding today from CPI about the public fund allocation in several places in Brazil and Indonesia, which is very low and is insufficient to cover even basic services. I've seen a recent report as well launched in Indonesia on this, where most cities in Indonesia spend less than 0.75% of their local spending budgets. These realities are actually global South countries' realities, where we have first a huge finance gap to scale up zero waste solutions to a city-wide level, even the basic things of collections. And second is to sustain the operation costs, because we know it's labor intensive by nature. So basic services and the operational costs are actually the big elephant in the room. And often the political challenges to secure and allocate more public funds from national and also mostly local level in the waste sector is highly challenging. Next. So what's clear as well is that we need not only more quantity in terms of climate finance, but we also need higher quality of climate finance to ensure a just transition in the waste sector. This means we should not use financial instruments that leads to indebtedness, such as loan. We must ensure that climate money are accessible by implementers and affected communities. In the waste sector, these are the waste pickers, waste workers, and local communities who are at the heart of implementing and sustaining this solution. And climate finance for the waste sector must ensure that nothing is wasted, it's zero waste, but also no one is left behind by applying qualitative principles, including environmental justice principles. Next. So maybe many of you question like, so how does it look like? Well, first of all, we have seen this pyramid, like the waste hierarchy. So from this alone, we understand that policymakers and financiers need to look at the top of the hierarchy and understand in the context of climate, we don't have time. We only have 5 years at most to make a significant intervention that prevent us from ecological collapse. And in this very, very short period, which is only 1 term of leadership for most government, it is a common sense to get all political, all policy, all financial support to the highest impact solutions at the top of the hierarchy that provide the greatest climate mitigation, adaptation, and co-benefits outcomes. And what we've heard as well is that following this hierarchy, we know that by implementing only waste separation and composting alone in most cities, our study found that we can reduce up to 62% of methane emission from landfill. And if we add on top of that biostabilization for dirty organic fractions and applying biological active cover for landfills, we can see results like 95% of methane reduction. Next. And as you've heard before, climate finance and political support are still going to technologies that swap methane to CO2. This is unacceptable. As we're swapping one short-term problems, methane in landfill, when you burn it, it's actually becoming 100 years carbon problems, which will further increase the global temperature. This is the bottom line. And we cannot achieve the global methane pledge, but undermining the Paris Agreement goal. There are many other reasons beyond climate considerations as well to leave waste incineration and other burning technologies such as RDF as a cost consideration. At first, impact to public health, community displacement, and also livelihood elimination, especially for waste picker and waste workers. Next. So this is why GAIA is working this report with CPI, YPBB, and Polis. Basically, we want to identify ways to increase finance flow for methane reduction in the waste sector, but also we want to ensure that the process is just, fair, and equitable, meaning climate finance, first, must strictly follow the waste hierarchy, and second, again, leaving no one behind. Next. In this report, we choose 2 countries, Indonesia and Brazil, where GAIA members, Polis and YPBB, have been working for decades in implementing zero waste solutions. There are some distinctive features that you will see in the cases in the following presentation. In Indonesia, we chose Bandung, where YPBB has been working with local governments and communities who mostly now use black soldier flies. Community groups are applying this bioconversion technology in a decentralized system, connecting zero waste and agroecology as sister solutions. And in Brazil, we will see from Polis composting as the main technology used there, including home composting. And we will see several cities where waste pickers cooperatives are actively diverting organic waste from landfill. And in the context of Brazil, this country has a huge relevance because Brazil is going to host the next COP30. And then both countries are actually in the list of low-M partnership. We expect to see progress on low-M in the 2 countries and many other countries in Baku and in the coming years. Next. So to recap, climate finance must move from harmful to impactful. We need to stop organic waste from being landfilled and incinerated, and climate finance must be accessible and support implementation at the local level, thus enabling us to deliver the greatest core benefits while rapidly reducing greenhouse gas from the waste sector. Next. And then again, in this webinar, you'll see our initial findings, but we're inviting you, if you're coming to COP next month in Baku, you can see and learn more in our official side events organized on November 14 to gain more insights on this report. Next. So that's all. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll send the email on the chat box. Thank you. Back to you, Yogi.
Thank you, Yobel. Well, I know for some of you all still need a time in this early morning to digest all this information from Yobel, but I'm sure you have a lot of questions here. But please write your question in our Q&A box. We will collect your question and we will answer your question in the after the last presentation. So now it turns to Piki. Please, Piki, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Yogi, and thank you, Yobel, for opening up. Hello, everyone. Today, I will be talking about the organic waste processing done by the micro enterprises in Bandung, Indonesia. We learned that organic treatment can reduce methane emission from Yobel's presentation, but who process them? What opportunities are there that we can get as a society from organic waste treatment? My presentation is about these people who treated organic waste, and we will explore how we can tap into this opportunity, especially within the context of methane emission reduction and environmental justice principles. Next, please. So, YPBB, my organization, has been working with a model of source segregation and segregated collection since 2017. This initiative mainly focused in the Metro Bandung area in West Java and has been replicated to other regions in East Java and Bali. So this is basically a decentralized and people-powered system where the collection and organics treatments are all done by various community stakeholders, especially women's group and waste collectors. Next, please. Through the years, we learned that this model has been successfully diverted around 40% of total organics to the landfill, all in the absence of law enforcement on waste segregation. So from this, we can see that this model shows highly potential organic waste reduction, especially if it's supported by policy and appropriate law enforcement on waste segregation. I will talk more about this waste segregation. Why I talk about waste segregation? Next. And also you can see in the table here that where it shows the impact of government support to the programs. Once there is support, community-based projects actually gain a significant improvement in numbers of households covered by the programs, jobs, and the numbers of organic waste diversion from landfill and incineration. So what we can learn from this continuous government support is critical to maximize community-based projects to reduce waste methane and deliver other core benefits, particularly job creation. So next. Source separation, why I talk about source separation and separate waste collection, is the foundation for a successful organic waste management. This is an essential public service that can only be delivered sustainably by local government. For instance, in one community that we've worked with, where segregated collection is implemented and supported by local government, we managed to have a more holistic impact because the system allows us to obtain clean organic waste that can be used for various organic waste treatment, which is also connected with the local food production done by the local communities. Through this, we can learn that government has a critical role in delivering those core benefits through community-based solutions by providing public infrastructure, space for urban farming, purchase the produce food from the local communities, and distribute the harvest for the less privileged part of the community. Next one, please. So BSF. In Bandung, there is a significant development of black soldier fly or BSF organic treatment. This is a larvae of flies that we often found in the composting pile if you compost, especially by local community groups who develop micro enterprises on a backyard scale. This backyard scale usually capacity is less than 1 ton per day. Sometimes it's 300 or 500, up to 500 kilograms per day. I mean, the reason that BASF is popular is because it has better economic value than compost here. BASF becomes an alternative for animal protein with a wide spectrum of uses from poultry, fish, fats. The frass or residue from BASF is a good soil amendment too. In general, the output of BASF organic treatment has potential for multi types of products in urban agriculture. BASF in Bandung is a good example of community-based organic treatment. The power of this community-based model is small, many. Although it is small in capacity, it is highly scalable and adaptable to an urban setup that often has limited space. This is very relevant for cities that struggle with securing big spaces for organic treatment. Financially speaking, community-based solutions are also competitive when compared to other technologies. This is especially true when we also count the co-benefits like job creation, community food resiliency, and on top of the financial benefits. What is also interesting in the environmental justice aspect of this model is that BASF farmers communities in Indonesia work collectively to build from local knowledge. They learn from one another, building common knowledge, becoming the expert, or we call it citizen scientist, experimenting with their everyday tools and materials. They share their learnings on an online community called Paguyuban Magot Nusantara. Through this democratic knowledge building process, they prevent organic waste from being landfilled while creating added value products that suit the local context. Collectively, the BASF farmers community in Bandung can process up to 25 tons per day. With finance and policy support, we can ramp this up to at least 4 times more, so 100 tons per day. To give you a picture, a ton of organic waste processing using BASF will need a capital cost of around 5 to 15,000 US dollars. Next. But despite of their contribution, these people are not getting the support from government and financiers. Although 60% of waste in Bandung is organic, finding a good source of organic waste is challenging. Most of them then become organic waste pickers, getting waste from wet markets, schools, and households. Left by their own, these people take multiple roles as community educators and waste collectors. This left a little of their time to do the actual work with BASF organic treatment. Their high capacity to expand and reduce more organic waste remains untapped. Next. So I will echo what Yobel has said also earlier, that we find that what hinders government from scaling up mainly comes from local government's operational and fiscal capacity to make sure that governments are in control. The fiscal problem limited the government to the segregated collection and finance operation in waste management. This limitation comes from the central government policy in which waste management is not part of basic public services. Next. But on the other hand, these local micro enterprises also they face challenges in getting the raw materials. There is the segregated waste, organic waste. Establishing cooperation with big producers and organic waste like hotels and restaurants are also challenging because proper capital and organizational setup are needed. Any industries that have uncertainties in getting their raw materials are unbankable. So accessing public funds and government funds for small and micro enterprises like this becomes a challenge too. Many of them then stop and gave up the practice. This has caused cities' capacity to process organic waste drop. Next. On a larger scale, a G2G funding scheme that flows from international funders to the central government has focused mainly on large infrastructure. These micro-scale organic processing entities are left behind in favor of middle to large corporations. To realize their potentials, these micro-scale organic entrepreneurs need to be supported and sustained to expand their work with a concerted effort from local and national government. Policy to support these accessible funds, operational costs, and organizational setups. So in conclusion, we see that community-based solutions pose a huge potential to reduce waste methane and deliver a lot of co-benefits. Climate finance must be accessible, inclusive of local community groups, who is at the heart of zero waste implementation. We need strong policy from the government to ensure equitable finance that can scale up the power of these small but many enterprise to achieve our climate target. Thank you. Yogi, back to you.
Thank you, Vicky. So the bottom line is we still have a choice, right? That compared like Yobel said, we don't need to burn because like waste to energy issues is kind of we removing one problem to another. So this is like Vicky said, yes, this is not only solution but also we creating like circular economy impact, like where you collecting the waste and then you let the BSF digest the waste and then the BSF itself can be produce more maybe food for the poultry, for the environment and else. Okay, now I will send this screen to Victor if you're ready, Victor.
Yes.
Okay, now the screen is yours, please.
Thank you so much, Yogi. Thanks, GAIA, for inviting us and doing this incredible job. I'll be quite fast sharing with you all a bit of our work that will appear in this study and mostly talk about the waste pickers' role in the organic waste management in Brazil and how this is growing. For our friends from the Americas, so as I see that we have some people from Brazil, just let you know that on Wednesday we have another event that will probably go deeper in the experiences that we have in Brazil. So what are the case studies that we basically studied for this finance study? We have business models with waste pickers cooperatives, we have public business models, we have home composting, normally all of them public funded, the private decentralized companies that are micro companies of composting, and public-private partnerships for biogas. And all these business models, they feature different technologies. We have composting with home composting, passively aerated, static piles, and also turned windrows and automatic systems of composting, and also anaerobic digestion with biogas for electricity in this case. So what are the successful case studies? In the waste pickers cooperatives, we basically have these examples of Verdecoop and Copercicla. Both of them are waste pickers cooperatives that manage more than 180 tons of organic waste per month. Copercicla specifically manages almost 400 tons per month of organic waste and serves around 21 municipalities, reaching almost 130,000 people. So they have contracts with the cities to manage the organic waste. Unfortunately, Copercicla still uses a conventional collection. They are growing separate collection of organics, and Verdecoop is a waste picker organization that serves the hotels, restaurants in the region with no support of the cities they could grow. Copercicla has more than 100 workers and also Verdecoop 26 workers. And basically, this is the scale of operation that might solve the problem of organic waste management in more than 80% of the cities as Brazilian municipalities. 79% of them have up to 330,000, inhabitants. That just doesn't generate more probably than 300 tons a month of organic waste. And why composting with waste pickers? Basically, composting with waste pickers generates more jobs than other solutions. We estimate that they generate 2 times more job than private and public composting, and 10 times more job than landfillings, but also because it generates more income to the most vulnerable ones that are normally Black or mixed race people in Brazil that are more vulnerable. And also we have a higher presence of women working as waste pickers in waste pickers cooperatives. And how are they being supported now by the government? Mostly by funding these solutions to the recently funds from the ministries to work with waste pickers and fund their operations, mostly with CapEx investments, so they can build equipment, infrastructure, and all that stuff. Other good examples that we have here are home composting projects that had impressive impact in diverting organic waste from landfilling. We have the city of Rancho Queimado. They basically invested around $100,000 at the time in giving one home composting bin for each person in the city. It's a city in South Brazil. They have around 3,000 people and around 800 households. They estimated that in the first months of operating this program, they reduced it up to 40% the waste management costs. They basically diverted 25% of organics from the landfill, but they also had a big impact in dry recyclable separation, reducing 70% the quantity of dry recyclables that were sent to the landfill. So reducing transport costs and landfill gate fee. The Lages city, also in South Brazil, they basically engage people in doing home composting in this like yards that you see in the right corner of the screen. They engage currently around 15,000 people, they estimate. And with this project, they estimate to reduce around 25% of the organic waste sent to landfill. They basically, in the last years, reduce the quantity of waste they are sending to landfills and also saving municipal budget with this project. So basically, what we have seen here happening in the cities in Brazil, based on the successful case studies, that we need to rethink municipal solid waste management beyond the conventional private and state-run logic, and include community-based waste pickers and other civil societies organizations to have long-term impact and better impact, and especially that we need to invest more in people and not necessarily only in technology or machinery, because supporting these community-based models, waste pickers models, we normally have faster improvement of the system. It's more effective, and we have more long-term impact than the other solutions. Thank you all for your time. And if you have any questions also, you can drop in the chat.
Thank you, Victor. So another option, I think, so we still have an option to managing the waste, of course, and especially for this organic waste. And like I said before, this is not only the solution, but also we can create something else like job opportunity and another economic profitable. And then now we going to Tiza, Mafira, if you're ready. And please you
Yes.
to share your presentation, please.
Sure. I think that somebody's going to be sharing the presentation for me.
Oh yeah, okay. I will wait for the tech. Maybe just a minute, just a sec. Can help us, maybe, Yobo, the presentation of Tiza?
Yeah, Dan is sharing, right?
Okay, okay. So Tiza, what you will share to us today?
Well, YPBB and Polis explained, the case studies in Brazil and in Indonesia. And basically, Climate Policy Initiative, we looked at those case studies and the numbers, and we analyzed the finances of those case studies and looked at, essentially, we can go to the next slide. We looked at the public kind of business models and the community and cooperative models, as well as the private sector models, and compared all of them. So what we looked at is that what we found is that public and community models show potential for efficiency, actually, especially when it reaches scale. And for community and cooperative models here, there's a few business models that are looped into this category. There's waste pickers groups, community groups, there's cooperatives. In Brazil, there's catadores. There's a few kinds of business models that form this category of community and cooperative. With public, it's usually government owned. And we've plotted it out on this graph. Essentially, what you see here is the purple dots, the green dots, those are private sector, and the rest are public and community models. And you can see that as they go to the right, the dots get bigger, and that's public and community models that are quite cost effective. So even though they're starting to manage a lot of waste, and that the waste that they're managing is actually larger than the amount of waste managed by the private sector, but their costs are actually not that high. They still remain within kind of the middle parts of this graph, compared to, for example, the purple dot on the top, which is indication of a high cost, but not a lot of waste managed. And this is just to show that there's space for the private sector, the public sector, and the community-based sector, but that the community and the public, they usually get this reputation for being, inefficient, ineffective, small scale. And this, what we've seen from the case studies is actually the opposite, that they actually do show potential for efficiency and can even compete against the private sector as well. Next slide. So, but there are challenges, of course. If we want to support more of the public sector and the community sector business models, we need to overcome some of these challenges. So the first challenge is that we found municipal spending for waste per ton varies from city to city. So in Indonesia, we found that the municipal spending ranges around below 1% to about 2% of the total budget of that city. And in Brazil, the range is around 1.7% to 7%. So this is not a big proportion of the total city budget. And there's also quite a bit of variability, suggesting that the standards of waste management are probably not the same, and that some are more efficient than others. So there's a way to make the overall municipal spending higher, as well as spent more efficiently across the board. Next slide. The second challenge is that we've seen that all of these different business models do yield different returns, but there's one particularly striking finding, which is that for those business models that have actually calculated the cost savings from diverting organic waste from landfill, these cost savings are significant. So if we can find a way to standardize that cost savings should be quantified across all business models, we can find, we'll be able to find that these business models are, more attractive overall, right? So on the right side, you'll find a graph, like a green bar that shows savings. And those savings are, they're very, very high. If we count savings like that on the left of the graph, we might find something significant, but unfortunately, not all community groups or government business models or even private sector models actually quantify these savings. Next slide. So in terms of how much does it cost actually to set up a business model for organic waste management? We've broken it down into capital expenditure and operational expenditure, and I'll start with the CapEx. We'll see on this slide here that we've plotted out what are the big capital expenditures. And the biggest one that we found is fixed assets. In other words, land contributes the most to total asset value. So this is a major barrier to entry for industrial players, but it is less of a barrier for home composting, because for home composting, you don't actually need to purchase or acquire new pieces of land, right? So the cost actually goes pretty much lower if your business model is home composting. Next slide. For OpEx, we found that labor costs contribute the main bulk of costs, over 70% to almost 98, almost 100% in some cases, are just mainly labor costs. And this indicates actually that organic solid waste management is labor intensive, and it has the potential to create jobs. And this is very important for countries like Indonesia and Brazil, which still needs to see its job opportunity and employment opportunities sector grow. Next slide. Another thing that we found that if we looked at the levelized cost of waste management across all business models, we found that public and community models can actually be more effective than RDF or incineration models. So certain community groups that we see here have a levelized cost that's lower than incinerators. We've even seen certain community groups that have a cost lower than a large incinerator, right? So this is due to community group models not generating significant transportation costs. They're decentralized. They finish at the source. So unlike RDF incinerators and sanitary landfills whose costs are high, among others, because of transportation, right? So they can actually be more effective. And this indicates an opportunity for community group models to compete with large waste treatment facilities, or we can actually see the money going into large waste management facilities being invested instead in more at the source community group and government operated models. In Brazil, we see that on average, the public home composting groups has the lowest cost actually, followed by the government sector, and then the waste picker cooperatives, and then the private sector. So that's also an interesting point to note. And that's due to home composting programs having no ongoing operational costs. It's a one-time investment to provide kits, and there's no land acquisition requirement. So that's why it's quite a low cost. Next slide. And co-benefits need to be quantified as well. We've already discussed cost savings on managing waste at the source. We've already talked about job creation, but there are other co-benefits that, if quantified, could increase the value of organic waste treatment. We have, for example, social community co-benefits, where the products generated can be diversified. So you could have compost, you could have vegetables, where you could sell feedstock. You have community engagement, you can encourage urban farming, and you can reduce reliance on external energy. Of course, there are health co-benefits as well, and environmental co-benefits. So if all of these were quantified, we would see a lot of, an increased value of organic waste treatment, and this could probably be a further study. Next slide. So lastly, to conclude, we believe that data availability needs to be improved. Community business models need capacity to conduct better bookkeeping It has been difficult to find consistent data across these business models because some of them don't actually record their inputs and outputs. Public program data needs to be more transparent and made available to public. For business models, we found that community revenues are relatively low compared to private business models. In some cases, in other cases, they can be competitive, but definitely the overall cost effectiveness remains competitive overall. For financing, I think that we need to design interventions closer to the source to reduce the main cost, which is land and transportation costs. And grants continue to be needed to help early stage design of community business models and capacity building for operations and accounting and bookkeeping. Multilateral development banks usually fund large-scale infrastructure projects that are government owned or operated. They could definitely fund public infrastructure for not large-scale projects, but a cluster, a chain of government-owned or community-operated organic waste management facilities that are still decentralized. If we could cluster them together and show that it is a big infrastructure project, even though it's decentralized, this is something that I think MDBs could support. And for policy priorities, governments need to enact a minimum standard of organic municipal waste management and prioritize it as a key part of the waste hierarchy. Governments need to allocate sufficient budgeting. That's what prioritization means, to pay for organic waste management as a public service. And government projects also need proper accounting of the budget savings that they can enjoy from managing organic waste at the source. Thank you.
Thank you, Tisa. Wow, this is tempting. So we can see how the organic waste management can be turned to organic waste business, right? So, all right, now we will go into our panel responder. We have Ibu Andina Novitatas An from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia. Please, you can give us your responder about the case from Indonesia, from Brazil, and also the data from the visa. Okay, please, the screen is yours, Ibu Andina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yogi. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation to GAIA and YPBB Bandung. I also convey an apology from Mr. Nofrizal Tahar for being unable to attend this activity, this webinar. Hopefully, it doesn't diminish our intentions and also our objective as a responder today. Okay, talking about the climate finance, actually, I think this is one of the most important topic in welcoming the COP29 in Baku this November. This is also crucial because each country has its own policy in financial, in cooperation, maybe in waste policy, climate change policy, and etc. But in same side, we also understand that to achieve the target, it will be easier to cooperate with other countries or other parties. From the great presentations earlier, I think we are actually on the right path, where the main goal, our main purpose is to protect our environment and its ecosystem by overcoming the problem from the source. In Indonesia, the waste sector is the third contributor in producing greenhouse gas emission, although the amount is not as big as forest and energy sector, but actually we can overcome many environmental problems by doing waste management, by doing waste treatment properly in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, I think. For domestic solid waste subsector, the emissions mainly comes from the decompositions organic waste in landfill. So organic waste is still a big challenge in Indonesia. I think we still need some regulations that could form the most appropriate, the best organic waste management flow, the mechanism, the methodology, and it should be easy to adapt quickly by the community, by the people. As it's mentioned before, the black soldier pie nowadays is the popular organic waste treatment nowadays, and because it is proven quickly deplete food waste, and also could produce the good products such as animal feed with high protein. I think this is very helpful for the community, for the local communities, but also very helpful to decrease the organic waste to be landfill. And also the idea of collaborating with waste picker in Indonesia has also been carried out, but there are not many, and they still choose to work alone. But we admit that the waste pickers are very helpful in the terms of sorting, and it takes deeper communication to be able to embrace the existing waste picker in Indonesia. If we talk about the facilities, waste management into waste management, waste business, I think to support this as mitigation action, basic things like sortings and 100% service by the government must be fulfilled first. And another things to be considered is the off-takers. Off-taker mapping will be very good in determine which treatment method is the most ready and can maintain the sustainability of waste processing activity itself. This is maybe what we call circular economy, where the waste as material, supply and demand in stable condition, and also there will be co-benefits between all stakeholders that include in this circular flow. Talking about climate finance, I think surely this will support our various mitigation activities, and the waste managers and also the government. Will support the government to treat the waste from downstreams until the upstreams. And last year at COP28, Indonesia actually always encouraged the developed countries to implement one of the points in the Paris Agreement related to mobilizations of climate finance. And also as a developing country, Indonesia also voiced the importance of technology transfer from the developed countries to developing countries for climate issues, and participate and utilize leadership in various international forums to advance the global sustainable finance agenda. I think this is very conducive to a just and affordable transition. Maybe that's all the response for me. I hope it is pleased for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Andina. That's how Indonesian government responds. And we will hear from Philippines government. There is Madam Maria Teresa Delo. If you're ready, you can share to us your response. Madam Maria, the screen is yours, please.
Yes. Good morning. I would like to thank GAIA and for this webinar. Actually, we're going there, on the organics. It's really alarming that the organic waste or the biodegradable contributes a large portion in the carbon emission. Actually, in our locality, we started the organic through composting method, and we've been in Indonesia last January and February, and we planned to start the black soldier fly because we've seen that this is a large part or contribution for the lessening the methane in our organic. And at present, San Fernando, Pampanga is the culinary capital of the Philippines, wherein there are so many food waste in the business establishments. No? At present, unfortunately, that we are only composting at the city level the organic waste in the two public markets, because the composting is done in every barangay in the community. But I think it's we have to strengthen our implementation on the composting of the organic, and we plan to go down in the community. As I observed, uh, the government practices, the government law is there, and we strictly implement the provision of the law. We just have to empower the community. Actually, we accept the fact that we are weak in the community. So we plan next year, we will go down to the community and strengthen the implementation of the composting using not only manual composting, if we can make use of the equipment, we will also introduce the vermicomposting and the black soldier fly. Right now, this year, we plan to start the black soldier fly with the help of our partner in Indonesia. And I'm proud to say that in the implementation of the law, we are strict. That's why we and also we've reached the waste diversion of 89% in the waste in the waste rate. So, and I will proudly say that we are the final disposal in the sanitary landfill compared to other city is reduced to 20%, no, 20 to 25% on the average. But still, we lack on the implementation of the community so that we can strengthen it. And also, our hurdles or in our locality is the political exercise. In the change of the leadership, the program in the solid waste management, and even us in the career are affected by it. In the change of leadership, a new mayor, a new leadership, another program. So the implementation of the program stop or cease, even if it's contribute to the improvement of the locality. And I'm happy to be part of this webinar because I've captured the business model and the financing. Actually, we are planning short of for the infrastructures, because here in the Philippines, for us to finance in our locality, we have to get the approval of the Sanggunian or the legislative body. So the legislative body and the executive should be synced or aligned with the program. So we have to go back to the basic, like the organic. And I agree with Tisa, that is lesser cost, if we practice the composting, the compared to infrastructure or the temporary solution, the incineration. And this is unfortunate also in our part, in the Philippines, even the government agencies are promoting the incineration. So that is our struggle. We have to fight the program of the waste to energy, which is incineration or burning. And we have to share or advocate the zero waste program, not only not only in our region but also in other region. Because it's sad to say that in our region, only city of San Fernando is very strong on the zero waste program. Although it is included in our law in the Republic Act 7003, but not all of the locality is practicing it. And in fact, I plan with the Pampanga area to promote the zero waste and to strengthen the organics, the composting. Because here in Pampanga, we are the only one who has the city material recovery facility. And all of our barangay has the material recovery facility. So, to reach our, in the region, our objective, to lessen the methane, we will spearhead first in our province and then in the region. In fact, I would like to share today, I should not be here in the webinar because we were invited to have a forum by the DILG, by the government agency. When I asked for the program, it is a product presentation of the various sanitary landfill or material recovery facility, but they are aiming into the waste to energy. So I did not attend the forum. I'd rather attend this webinar and fight against the waste to energy. Actually, I'm happy to say that our mayor, the incumbent mayor, Vilma Balikaluwag, during her campaign, she is into waste to energy. In fact, she's talking to the proponent, but when I orient her about the effect of the waste to energy, 180 degrees turn. Right now, she is campaigning for the zero waste rather than the waste to energy. That is why I've been to India. We're looking into the biogas, which is not harmful to the environment, But that project, our plan with I discussed it with Sir Froy. We will do it right after the election because we will be having another election next year. So as early as this, I have to plan out the program and then solidify our program on the organics. We're going into organics in our city material recovery facility down to the community level. Thank you for the sharing of the three presenters. I've learned so much and my mind is working on it, on how to plan, and I plan to discuss it with our office so that we can plan on how to strengthen our program to lessen the methane or the carbon emission, at least in our locality. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Gemma. Congratulations, you made it, turn your mayor 180 degree. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We have all the presentation from the speakers, and we also have the response from the government from Indonesia and Philippines. We also have our question in the Q&A box, and we already answer it. Thank you very much for your attending. If you are going to Baku for COP29 next month, you can learn about this report in an official side event on November 14 in side event 9. Check GAIA's social media also and website to learn about GAIA's plan to COP29. And then, of course, this waste management can be done not only by ourselves, not only we as a person, not only as organization or as government only, we can do it together as a human. Thank you all for today. Goodbye and have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.